Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. My name is Scott Reich, and this is Crime Talk. We've got some big news, and, well, first, let's get to the docket today. What do we have? First, Lori Vallow is getting her dream. She is going to be made famous, courtesy of Netflix. I have a good idea how that stay at the mental hospital went for Letecia Stauch. I'll tell you why. Paul Pelosi, a little analysis of the video. An example of no good deed going unpunished. And then finally, our dumb criminal of the day. Let's talk about it. Good day, aficionados. This is Crime Talk. My name is Scott Reich. First, some big news. Now, we've asked you and you came through. That's right. We, our little podcast, we do this on YouTube, and then it goes out to the podcast as well. But guess what? We just went over 1 million downloads. And why is that a big deal? Let me tell you why. Because there's 2 million podcasts out there. And the statistic that I saw that said, if you get 124 downloads on your podcast, you're in the top 50% of all podcasts. So it's not 124,000, 104 million, it's 124, because most podcasts get about 3 to 7 downloads. Usually the guy that put the podcast up, his wife, his kids, and maybe the next door neighbor. Okay. So not bragging. I'm saying thank you, thank you, thank you. And now the next milestone that we come up and on YouTube is we have almost 50 million views on YouTube. And I think we're almost at 500,000 subscribers on Facebook. Can you believe it? What the heck is going on here, man? Well, all I can do is say thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, let's get to the docket. That's right. Lori Vallow is going to be famous, all because of Netflix. And I thought maybe it was going to be because we talked about her here on YouTube. Well, in the documentary, you're going to hear Lori Vallow being confronted by her oldest son over the murders of 2 children during a jailhouse phone call. And that's going to be aired in the Netflix documentary. Now, Colby Ryan, he's featured in the trailer for the 3-episode series called Sins of Our Mother. And you're going to hear how he questioned Lori about why she killed siblings, 7-year-old Joshua, J.J. Vallow, and 17-year-old Tylee Ryan. Now, of course, we'll give him the presumption of innocence, but you know what I'm saying. Now, Lori Vallow is accused of obviously murdering her 2 children back in September of 2019, along with the help of her 5th husband, Chad Daybell, whose doomsday ideologies are said to have changed the mother. Now, her eldest son, Colby, asked his mother during the phone call, "Are you sorry for me or are you sorry for my siblings?" To which the alleged murderer responded, "Well, I'm sorry that you don't really fully understand the situation." The bodies of JJ and Tylee were obviously found on Chad Daybell's backyard in some shallow graves back in June of 2020, after it's alleged that Lori conspired to cover her tracks. Now, Lori and Chad Daybell have obviously both been charged with first-degree murder. Now, the documentary is to reveal details behind the murders that have not previously been disclosed, apparently, and a little insight into Lori's belief that convinced her there was a dark spirit inside her daughter and that the only way to free the spirit is to kill the body. In the trailer, you hear a voice that says, "Honestly, Lori and Charles look like they had the ideal marriage," a woman's voice says, but her beliefs had become a little bit more extreme. After she met Chad Daybell, she changed. Now, Chad's core beliefs were ingrained, obviously, in his apocalyptic teachings that shaped his world and eventually that of Lori. Now, he's believed he could distinguish evil spirits from good spirits and that there would be an apocalypse where only the righteous survive, according to the documentary. Now, Lori's doomsday ideologies appear to have influenced her actions as she apologized on the recorded phone call with Colby and claimed that he doesn't fully understand. "I would never have thought that you would have done something like this," Colby tells Lori. Taken back by Colby's vague accusations, Lori questions him. "What is it that you think that I've done?" she asks. Now, the trailer revealed how Lori attempted to make it appear to the public as if her children were fine. even revealing a conversation she had with another woman and claimed her son was safe and happy. There was also going to be footage from Lori's past showing her talking to a group of people about the importance of being, well, a good mother. Being a good mom is important to me, and a good wife. Being all those things together is not easy, so I'm basically a ticking time bomb. Now, the 3-part series, Sins of Our Mother, premieres on Netflix on September 14th, as Lori and Chad are obviously prepping for trial. Well, I know. Now I'm going to have to watch it on Netflix because it's work-related, and we can tell you if we think it's well done or not. We'll do that for you. We'll see. I don't know. I'm not sure what they're going to be able to add that we don't already know to this point, but hey, it's worth me taking the time to watch it. Next on the docket, Letecia Stauch. For those of you who don't recall, Letecia Stauch has been accused of killing her stepson, Gannon Stauch, and his remains were found under a bridge basically in Florida several months after his disappearance. Well, things haven't gone so well for Letecia Stauch. She attempted to escape on her extradition back to Colorado. She was making arrangements to try to escape from the El Paso County Jail down there in Colorado Springs. And she's kind of tried to play the voices are talking to me, I'm crazy route. So things have been delayed. We've had competency evaluations, one after another. And then she fired her public defenders, and she has a court-appointed private attorney representing her. And they raised the whole issue of, well, it could be NGRI, but not really sure, but we're letting the court know. And the prosecution said, hey, sounds like NGR to me. Let's send her down to the state mental hospital so that she can be evaluated. Smart move by the prosecutors, I say. Yes, well played. And what did the prosecutors do? Well, they filed an endorsement of 3 experts in the field of forensic psychology. And guess where they all work? That's right, at the Colorado Mental Health Institute there in Pueblo, Colorado. If that report was good for Letecia Stauch, the defense would be endorsing those 3 doctors in the area of forensic psychology. But since the prosecution endorsed those witnesses, I'm going to go on a limb here and say that the report didn't quite go the way Letecia Stauch hoped it would be. My guess, there's many words in there. Competent, malingering, manipulative. Just saying, we'll see what goes on at the hearing tomorrow. All right? But if that report was good, it wouldn't be the prosecution making that endorsement. Next on the docket, Paul Pelosi. We brought you the story yesterday. He pled guilty to DUI, got the standard terms and conditions, right? Have an interlock on your car, pay a fine, take some alcohol classes for 3 months. Frankly, pretty reasonable. The BAC wasn't extremely high. It was a .082, the legal limit being .080. But there was an accident involved, okay? And that's where I think the real crime comes in. Take a look at these photographs. Look at that 911. Brand new. Major damage. I'm not sure if it's been totaled, but it will never be the same again. And those of you that have watched a while know I like fine automobiles, and it's a crime that he allowed that vehicle to get into an accident and basically never be the same again. It's practically worthless. That's the real crime. But anyway, we also have, that's right, we have the body cam video. And you can see the video. Take a look at this. Him, performing the roadside sobriety tests after that 2021 Porsche was involved in that accident with that Jeep. Here's a couple of key moments. Notice Pelosi's voice is difficult to make out at times, in part because his slurred speech can be heard telling the officers he's had a glass of champagne before dinner and maybe a glass of wine as well. Ooh, there you go. There's probable cause to take that test right there. Then Pelosi tells the officers, take a listen, he started drinking around 7 p.m., but I finished around 8. So don't worry, officer. Everything's fine here. Now, after stops at the hospital and the local California Highway Patrol office, and then finally the county jail investigators determined he had a BAC, like I noted, of .082. And obviously he's a high-profile figure given the fact that he's married to the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Nancy Pelosi. Now, at one point on the tape, Mr. Pelosi is speaking to the officers interviewing him and appears to describe himself as a high-profile person. The officer said, "I understand who you are, and I'm not here to try to do anything to draw any negative attention to you," the officer says. "And if you've been honest with me, there's really nothing you should be worried about in terms of the alcohol that you may have assumed, Mr. Pelosi." Then Pelosi can be heard slurring and engaging in activities that officers described as objective signs of intoxication. Yeah, as the officers discuss his results, Pelosi can be seen off balance, gripping onto the vehicle. As the officers notes, yes, he needs the vehicle to stand steady. He's constantly grabbing on a patrol car just to keep his balance, one officer can be heard saying. At the same time, Mr. Pelosi can be seen walking in front of the dash cam with his hand on the front push bar. Now, Pelosi is also seen attempting to perform the sobriety test, including following an officer's finger with his eyes. That's right, that's the horizontal gaze nystagmus test. Another has him place his feet together, arms to the side, and look up to the sky, and then close his eyes and count to 30. Yep. During the interview, then the officers tell Mr. Pelosi that he was in fact the driver, and they were lucky that no one's injuries were worse. As you can see, photos showed bruises on Mr. Pelosi's hand and forearms after the damage, probably from that airbag being deployed. I know, such a tragedy. The other driver was only identified as John Doe, and both of them declined medical treatment at the scene, but Mr. Doe on June 2nd told the Napa County prosecutors that he has begun suffering pain in his upper right arm, right shoulder, and neck the day after the crash. And I'm sure that he has contacted an attorney that said, hey, you need to go document those injuries right away, because if it's not in a medical record somewhere, it didn't happen. And now you got all that pain. Oh my gosh, the physical therapy that you're going to have to endure, it's going to be so painful. It's going to be life-changing, I'm sure. Can you say policy limits? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Now, there are crashes I've been to a lot less damage where people have turned out to be more seriously injured, the officer tells Mr. Pelosi. And as officers are going through the process of the alcohol test and say that he can take a breath test or a blood test, Mr. Pelosi appears to be concerned about failing the test. That's right. If I take the breath test, take a listen, and he fails, then what happens? And then the officer says this: he doesn't have to take both, just one. And if I fail, then what happens? You can hear Mr. Pelosi say. Then we proceed forward with the arrest, the officer politely tells Mr. Pelosi. Now, authorities did confirm that Mr. Pelosi, who's 82, and I sure hope I'm driving a brand new Porsche when I'm 82 years old. Well, they confirmed that he was taken to the hospital for treatment for any potential injuries before he went to the Napa County Jail, which I am sure the Napa County Jail is about as rough as the one here in Pitkin County. Yeah, that's Pitkin County. That's where Aspen is. Rough jail. No, it's not. No. They treat you very nicely, very comfortable accommodations. So he had more than 2 hours to burn off alcohol in his system before investigators took the blood sample. Well, possibly. All right. Alcohol in your blood, it's like a bell-shaped curve, right? As you drink, it goes up, and at a certain point it peaks and then comes down. So the question is, where were you? Were you at the point 2 hours later that the BAC was still rising, or were you on the downside? So the 0.82 was maybe a little generous to him, had he gone up and peaked? We'll never know. Frankly, it doesn't matter. He pled guilty, but let's face it, isn't it always kind of interesting to see high-profile people in a little bit of a precarious situation? Now, thank goodness no one was injured. And now Mr. Pelosi can get back to trading stocks, his primary occupation. Next on the docket, no good deed goes unpunished. This is not good for the police officers. Okay, we'll just start with this, all right? So this black pastor is filing a discrimination lawsuit against the police after he was handcuffed. Forget this. Watering his neighbor's flowers while they were out of town, despite a woman stepping in and coming to his defense, who just happened to be white. Now, Pastor Michael Jennings was arrested in May outside of his neighborhood yard in Alabama after police received a complaint about a strange and suspicious man in a vehicle near the property. Well, Mr. Jennings, who was seen watering the flowers with a hose, had just returned from Sunday service. He told police his longtime neighbor asked him to look after his shrubbery while he was out of town. But despite his good intentions and other residents vouching for him, that's right, Mr. Jennings was taken to jail and later charged with obstruction of government operation. Now, after insisting that he was just calmly gardening in the front yard, police asked Jennings, "How do we know that's the truth?" Listen to the pastor. The baffled pastor lives in the house across the street responded, "I had the water hose in my hand. I was watering the flowers." Seems like an obvious answer, does it not? Well, body cam footage shows 3 officers from the police department screaming at Jennings as he refused to provide identification as he was ushered away in handcuffs. Now, Mr. Jennings later learned that the person who called 911 knew him but didn't recognize him when she called in the report. Now, laughing in disbelief during this encounter, the pastor tells the officers, "Y'all racially profiling me." An unidentified officer then says, "We're not profiling you, Mr. Jennings." Mr. Jennings then said, "Yes, you did." The officer continues, "No, sir, no, sir. We're not about that, okay?" Now, then a white resident then intervened and told the officers that Jennings lived next door, insisting that he was friends with the homeowner who had left earlier in that day. She stated, "Look, he lives right there," she told the police. The pastor from the Vision of Abundant Life Ministries was arrested and placed in the back seat of the cop car, despite the woman vouching for who he was and where he lived. His mobile phone was also taken during the arrest. You can hear the officers ask, "Does he have permission to be watering flowers?" To which the neighbor responded, "He may because they've been friends and they went out of town, and he may be watering their flowers. It would be completely normal." The woman added, "This is probably my fault." At one point during the ordeal, Jennings could be heard speaking about his long-term neighbor. "He is going to be pissed when I tell him I got arrested for watering his flowers." Now, police later received the notice of the suspicious car belonged to another man. Mr. Jennings' wife and daughter later arrived to the scene to identify him, but he was later charged with obstruction of government operations. The charges were dropped 1 month later, but now the pastor is going to file a discrimination lawsuit against the officers. Now, I'm not sure it's so much discrimination. I mean, I'm not going to go there without further proof. But how about just stupid officers? Okay? We like good officers. This is stupid officers. An officer with common sense would look at this and say, who would break in and water somebody's plants and then find out the guy lives next door, completely ignore that situation and arrest the man? Okay? Now, the pastor, he did everything correct in this situation. Okay? It's one of those things, comply and you won't die. That's what this boils down to. He did it absolutely correct. And it's on the body cam video of him, yes, being a little disbelief, but he didn't resist. He didn't, argue to the point where he got belligerent with the police officers. You can see the disbelief and you can hear the disbelief in his voice, but he did it right. And now he's going to go sue them. And I don't know exactly what the outcome will be, but these officers, frankly, need to make an apology. And I think the city is going to have to get their checkbook out. It may not have been for completely racial profiling, but it may have been. And really what it boils down to, though, is they need to write a check for just being stupidity, for just being stupid. And you can't arrest people for no reason. And the attorneys have let the police know, just because you dismissed it doesn't mean the lawsuit's not coming forward. Next on the docket, finally, our dumb criminal of the day. Now, deputies in Vallow County, I apologize in advance if I mispronounce that, well, they made an arrest, and it was caught on camera, and it was a drug arrest. John Schneider was charged with trafficking in methamphetamine, tampering with evidence, and resisting without violence. His girlfriend, Lee Sandberg, was charged with conspiracy to traffic in methamphetamine. Now, in the video, take a look at this. The deputies noticed Mr. Schneider dropped something while he is being patted down. He just dropped a bag that looked like dope. One of the deputies is heard on camera saying, "Aw, man, Sandberg is also heard saying, Schneider proceeded to act like the drugs aren't his. Is that my meth down there? I have no idea how that got there. The cop then says, I mean, whatever. You might as well try to lie, the deputy said, laughing. You ain't got nothing to lose. Now, the deputies say that Schneider attempted to drop a half pound of methamphetamine under their patrol car. Another gram of meth was also found in his sock, and the deputies believe Mr. Schneider had bought the meth outside of the county and was working to sell it in Orange City. Mr. Schneider was held on a $511,000 bond, and his girlfriend, Miss Sandberg, that's right, she was in the car, $500,000 bond. Ah, the good old days when drug dealers had high bonds. It's amazing how quickly those cases got resolved when people were held in custody. Just saying. Obviously, if it's my client, I want my client out. It's so much more convenient than going to the jail. But I'm just telling you, high bonds work. All right. I want to thank everybody for watching. Thank you for listening to the podcast. Thank you for watching all of our videos. We appreciate them all tremendously. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We're not bragging. We're saying thank you. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you next time on Crime Talk.